Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel has been struggling as of late, with many creators having taken a big notice in how it hasn't been doing so well, specifically with the advanced format, but also with Steam numbers constantly dropping. But in a world of negativity, I'm here with some suggestions and a plan that might just save Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. So while we've talked about how much the TCG has had a hard time recently, and also how they've been doing a lot of things for the first times to try and recover, Master Duel is something I've often said is better off than the TCG. For one of the biggest reasons being is it's much more casual friendly, being easier to play for casuals, easier to get into for casuals, and easier to watch for casuals. All things that are super important in creating a large community, not just a hyper-competitive small one. But with the relative success that Master Duel has, it does feel like Konami has gotten a bit complacent. They saw that it was doing decent and kind of just dropped the ball with it. And because of that, people have just slowly been leaving as they get bored with the game and not much gets better. And then in some ways, it's actually gotten worse. And the format has driven people away too, with Malice being once again a scourge on the game, but I'm not going to dwell on Malice. Let's move past that. So then, how do we deal with Master Duel in a way to bring it up? The thing is, Master Duel has infinite potential, and it should be a beacon in the Yu community. Arguably, it is and has been, but it could be better. It could be brighter, and it should be. And I'm all for seeing it improve. So let's talk about it. Now, if you guys enjoy these discussions, please make sure to like, subscribe, as well as there's a new hyping feature on YouTube. So if you're from America, just swipe on your comment section, see the hype, helps the channel out. But as well, I'm curious as always to know your thoughts on this matter. So in the comment section below, let me know your opinions, what could help, as well as any rebuttals to my arguments. My one caveat, as always, be respectful, not just to me, but to each other. I want any discussion video to constantly be a forum of engagement and ideas. That means we have to be nice to each other, because at the end of the day, it's a game. We want to see it all succeed, right? I hope.
Yeah, boy.
That being said, let's talk about some fixes to the game. So I'll get the obvious one right out of the way, fixing the format. This one obviously will differ from time to time, and it's not easy to always have the foresight to balance a format correctly. People have noted that even my own ability to balance things like drafts or wheels, I'd like to think I do a good job, but occasionally I make mistakes. Konami will not be any different. Mistakes happen and bad formats can arise, so you can't permanently fix the game. But when bad formats do arise, they need to be quick to address it. And that's kind of what's happening with Malice right now. Format sucks. People hate it. They complain about it, but it's not been changing. The biggest balance to Malice happened last month, the biggest in a while, and I'm hoping in the days since filming this that a new one's been announced to hit it again. But at the time of recording this, and this is the day before Halloween, I'm seeing nothing. The last ban list was the biggest one yet and still effectively touched on zero problem cards. Cards like Appaloosa and Link Decoder are still there. Rise of Mitsurugi and the swords really aren't much fun either. Mjolnir and all these other cards that we've complained about forever in TCG, all legal here. And Maxine itself is an entirely other can of worms that's... First things first, make the format more sustainable and more healthy. The next thing that Konami is sort of missing in Master Duel is more ways of playing the game. Right now we have ranked, casual, and then solo mode, and then we have a rotating cycle of events, which is not nothing in terms of ways to play, but it's not a ton either. The solo mode doesn't interest me personally, so I don't have much experience from it, but I feel like it could be done better. You guys can give opinions on that. I thought the Striker anime with the intertwined cutscenes was cool and made it a little more robust of a solo mode. Casual mode is pretty much nothing. There's no reason to play casual. Casual never made sense to me. Why would anybody ever play casual? Because if you go first, you don't like your hand, you just concede. It doesn't encourage people to actually engage in difficult games that are interesting, which is kind of the whole point of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Ranked, which is fine. You could argue some small changes to ranked, but I mean, it's okay. It's just only one main way to play. And then the events, which are not consistent there, right? They change across the months. At points, there's either not an event or a dual trial, and they also change the formats to them pretty constantly. I think this doesn't really capitalize on the full scope of what Yu-Gi-Oh! Has available to it. If you guys look at Yu-Gi-Oh! Content and the landscape for which I guess the Western world has displayed Yu-Gi-Oh!, we've made a lot of alternate ways to play the game with wheels and drafting, challenges, Genesis format, I guess, and time travel, which are Konami sanctioned. There's many different ways to make Yu-Gi-Oh! Work. You can transform the game in all these different ways that push people to problem solve in new ways, play the game differently, and kind of reassess their creative or refire their creative reflexes to build new decks. And that's very much what Yu-Gi-Oh! Stands for. So the fact that we don't have more outlets to do this is a little bit of a shame. And people aren't incentivized to really invest into just an event when it goes away a couple days and it's just some gem bait. I think more alternate formats could easily exist within the game. This is important as well because where a game thrives cannot just be solely on the shoulders of competitive players. There needs to be for varying level of interest. And it already does this better than TCG with the auto prompts and stuff. So players like my dad, who plays pretty actively, plays maybe like a half an hour a day, doesn't have to remember to use his Dragonling Lightsworn effect when it goes to grave. It reminds him. It doesn't have to read his opponent's cards. It'll tell him when effect's being activated. Those are all important, but more could be done, right? Because there are times when, like my dad, will not like a format and just not play. Not having this alternate outlet to play in pushes him away for periods of time. And I imagine there are many people like my dad who it's a fun outlet for them to burn off steam from work when they're commuting or when he's in bed or when he's taking a shit. But people will just find alternatives to do that if they're not having fun. And these alternate formats could encourage that by giving either a different way to play or one that's more encouraging for that casual base, right? And that's kind of what Genesis may aim to do. So it could be directly Genesis and Master Duel, that could be something, or just something like it, where copying that sort of structure where different way to play, different rule set, I think that would go a long way for helping the game and spark some interest in it. There's also one other way of approaching this that I think isn't talked about enough. And this one might just be me, so I'm curious on your opinions to this. As someone who grew up on Yu-Gi-Oh! Playing the cube drafts, I don't see a reason why drafting shouldn't be possible in Master Duel too. And now this could come in two sort of forms. The more complex one is to do actual drafts, like you've seen me do on Sam's channel, and I'm gonna hope to bring to this channel too. And that's cool. Maybe a built-in system for that could be interesting. That may not be enough. The more realistic one is to imitate what sort of Hearthstone does. And that is to have a card pool, and then you enter your arena. And again, you're gonna have to make your own twist on this in your own name, but then you get to pick a deck from a bunch of options. You're given like 3 cards to choose from or 4 cards or whatever. You pick one, add it to your deck, and proceed to the next. You don't keep these cards, but then at the end of this, you then play against other people with the same thing. Because Yu-Gi-Oh's ginormous expanse of cards, you could have several different formats to explore, right? So you could have a low-powered retro one that's like only DM era cards or cards that are modern but fit the DM era playstyle. So like no extra deck or fusions only. Very slow-paced tempo GOAT format. Like think the basics of value, tempo, and card games and where Yu-Gi-Oh started out. Maybe you have one where it's Duelist Kingdom rules and monsters don't require tributes. Kind of the same way we make up rules for like Duel Night and such. You can manipulate the game to your disposal, and it's so much easier too when you have access to the code and you can directly change stuff. And with that much power and creativity, it feels kind of wasted. To me, this is exactly what I'd want to see. This arena style content would personally, it would absorb my free time, not even just like content. I would do it for fun. Let me know if that's something you guys want to see as well, because it's less typical for people to play, more so watch, but I think it would garner enough interest. I don't think Yu-Gi-Oh needs to go into the auto battle route like Battlegrounds or TFT, but maybe. But okay, besides these other ways of playing the game, what's next? Well, the next one is accessories driven. So I think specifically more mates. We have seen, at least I feel like as of late, an uptick in accessories and bundles, which is good and helps the game stay afloat. It's important that Konami is also making money, right? Because it needs to be mutually beneficial. We want to have to enjoy ourselves, grow the game, but also make money because they're a business. I don't expect them to do charity. Like the new accessories are great, and I'm happy that we're getting more of them, even if some of them are kind of random. We're not seeing many mates though. Mates enter the shop significantly more infrequently than anything else. And you could argue that it's just harder to do that, and harder to make them, but it can't be that much harder, right? Like just hire more people to do it then, right? Surely it makes money. And then even on that note, they could make it more interesting by making it community driven. So polls or any other sort of community outlet where players have a direct ability to sway what the next mate is going to be, whether they can insert their own cards or you're given a list to choose from and you vote. It means that for one, it increases community engagement, which is a big thing. It's going to be some other topics that I touch on, but it's going to also just mean that people are more interested in spending money on the game, which I think is a good thing. You want that to happen. Obviously that can apply to not just mates. They can do polls and stuff for sleeves, icons, coins, any sort of bundle, but I think it's good. I mean, an example to this of why stuff like this is even helpful is people were super hyped about like the Rescue Rabbit Neymar mate and all the accessories that came alongside that. We care about that stuff. The Alt Art Rabbit and the mate rabbit being the two things people care the most about. So getting both those is super sick. That should be clear that those are the two things they should be trying to push as promos more often. It does feel like a waste. There's so many cards to choose from to be fantastic mates. Why didn't we get a Snake Eyes Poplar mate in Snake Eye format, or Fire King Ponix? Both of those would have been excellent candidates, or some boss monsters too would also be fine. And then speaking on the Rabbit ult art and how much people love that, something that baffles me, there still is not an outlet for people to spend money to get some of the ult arts in the game. Fine, limited ult art for Ash or Bell makes it more exclusive, encourages people to spend money straight away, but we have never had an opportunity to get some of the arts of Dark Magician and Blue Eyes, Red Eyes, and many other different cards. And I ask, why? Like, you can have a new Blue Eyes artwork like once a year and you'd have it for 10 years. Surely that would increase sales, myself included. Maybe you can get some Royal Chasers. Maybe you release an alternate art collection pack if you want to blow your load all at once and make it more hype, which would be cool for the consumer, but maybe less value for them. But there's been straight up nothing. No communication with it either. I hope they have something planned, but it's been almost 3 years, right? And we've had like effectively nothing. We got a Royal Rare Blue Eyes the 1 year, which is sick, but we can't finish the play set of it, which is kind of lame. The point being, it doesn't make sense to me. I feel like so much more could be done with these resources at their disposal, stuff that's already there. And I guess this will matter too with the full arts or border breaks, whatever they're gonna call it, that are coming into the physical card game soon. I mean, I feel like they just aren't utilizing these ult art to the full potential in Master Duel. They should be. The next problem to tackle is the tournament infrastructure. Now, this one is a little more regionally aimed. The Americas region has nothing. The landscape of competitive Master Duel in the 2 continents is restricted to the 4 cups held a year, which is contentious in its own right, but that's not going to be the topic of this video, and it shouldn't be the only outlet for competing. Yu-Gi-Oh is a highly competitive game, and it has a decent bit of the player base, but it has absolutely suffered on Master Duel in the Americas regions because people feel like they have very little to compete for. The one thing with the Duelist Cups that do sort of matter is they really reward the top echelon of duelists the most, with prizes falling off quick and they're being very competitive driven. So that means is they're not as exciting or enticing to play if you're competitive-ish. Like the equivalent would be someone who likes to win a regionals within the TCG, but doesn't travel to all the YCSs. I haven't, I guess, talked to enough or experienced enough Challenger Cups and those like events to know if those have their own problems. They might, but they are better than nothing. It's at least a way to engage in the game in a constructed manner in Europe. I don't know why you don't have that in the Americas. And now we did have the Shadow Duelist and some other random one-off tournaments here and there, but they were inconsistent. They were not very close together, and we have no future schedule set. The last one, Shadow Duelist, I think was held in March of this year, so about 7 months ago, and we've received no news or until now even no future announcements of anything for us, no support whatsoever. That just feels like an obvious one. I don't know why you'd have an unsupported region. And I guess tangentially related to this is some different in-game prizing. Now, I'm not talking about some monetary value. I'd love that, but I also know it's not realistic, so I'm not going to even bother. What they could do is something like a Royal Rare ticket. And what's crazy is Duel Links has something like this, where you can give your card a different finish, like the parallel finish or whatever, and you get these tickets and you apply it to your favorite card. It's okay to make these rather hard to come by, but not having them all feels like a waste of a motivator that would otherwise get people to play. And maybe there's other incentives and other prizes that could be good for players that I can't think of. So if you have any ideas of what could be good to give out in game that wouldn't cost Konami money, but also still be fun for us and motivate us, let me know. Next thing is Twitch drops / just other ways of engaging in the community with creators and with the company itself. It's awesome that the TCG has started doing this more. I love seeing it, and it marks what I think will be a new era within the TCG for Yu-Gi-Oh! It would still be a great step in bringing the community more together and involved, and encourages people to watch Master Duel, which will get them interested in the game, encourages them to play if they've just mostly watched like Farfa streams, and it also rewards creators because makes them more interested to keep playing, and that is just advertising. Then the drops don't have to be insane, but it feels rather convenient. So I don't know why you wouldn't sort of do that. And then the last thing that I have is to have more unique release timelines. That one may be a bit hard to grasp, as well as it's subjective. So if you feel differently about this, that's fine. I enjoy when the release of key cards and themes is desynced with the order of release in the OCG and TCG, or in some cases they're released at the same time, which either way just kind of offsets how formats are done. So this creates formats that are completely different than what we experienced in the TCG or in the OCG. For example, releasing the Shizu cards before T Elements, which is something that neither OCG or TCG had, and created a unique format there. Or where Yubel cards had about 7 or 8 months to play in Master Duel before Desiree or Varidress got released, which made that deck pretty unbearable. Instead, you had all this time for that deck to have its own different identity. You also had Promethean Princess debut in Master Duel. We're also seeing this right now with the release of the BES cards not being on the TCG yet and just being now released in the OCG. And that's neat, but doesn't impact the meta remotely. So while it might be fun to mess around a little early, it's not actually changing the meta landscape to form a unique format. So I do think this stuff is good though, because it creates freshness in the game, especially for players who do play both the physical game and Master Duel. It also means that you're not having like leftovers of leftovers in terms of ideas, because this is even a problem in the TCG where we'll see the OCG solve the deck, and when we get it, there's not much creativity for us to sort of explore, and that's a big part of Yu-Gi-Oh that we just lose. And now when it goes to Master Duel, you're getting 2 levels of community involvement already into the deck. There's a lot less creativity to take place. It does happen from time to time, but it happens especially more when the release of cards are desynced. I guess another one that comes to mind now is Snake Eyes Doom Dragon coming alongside the Millennium cards gave them a good opportunity to be showcased together, something that we never had in OCG and TCG. So I think that doing this more frequently will actually lead to more interesting experiences in Master Duel, as well as keep it fresher for longer so that the monthly balance don't need to always be big changes. Some of them can be a lot more small adjustments, which in healthy formats is fine. Okay, those are all of the main suggestions that I have. I'm sure there's stuff that I've missed, so if you have anything that you think would also greatly support the game, let me know, as well as any issues you take or things that I've missed in regards to specific arguments that I have made. At the end of the day, I know that Konami does watch me as well as other creators, and the community is large. So this isn't just meant to be a clickbait Yu-Gi-Oh's dying video. It's meant to actually pose solutions, as well as to, if there's a small chance, inspire Konami to help the game and grow this community. Because at the end of the day, that's what would help my career too. It's what I want, and what I hope all you guys want too. With that said, till next time.